How bad does a scandal have to be for the NCAA to completely shut down an entire football program? Back in the 1980s, Southern Methodist University, a small private school in Dallas, Texas, had a football team that was way bigger than its name suggested. The SMU Mustangs were winning, producing NFL stars, and even claiming part of a national championship. For a while, they looked like the kings of Texas football. But here's the thing. They weren't winning just because of coaching or talent. Behind the scenes, SMU had set up what was basically an illegal payroll system for its players. In college sports, athletes are supposed to play for scholarships, not salaries. At SMU, boosters and university leaders created a slush fund, which is a pile of money secretly used to pay athletes. Players were getting monthly cash, free apartments, cars, and even help for their families. Now, you might think, okay, schools cheat sometimes. True, but SMU was different. They were repeat offenders. The NCAA, which is the governing body for college sports, had already caught them multiple times in the 70s and early 80s. They were punished again and again, but the payments never stopped. Even the governor of Texas at the time, Bill Clements, admitted later that he knew the money was still flowing. By 1987, the NCAA had had enough. They dropped the hammer with something called the death penalty. Don't worry, no one actually died. In sports terms, it meant the entire SMU football program was shut down. The 1987 season was canceled. The school also chose not to play in 1988 because they couldn't put together a real team. On top of that, they lost dozens of scholarships, got banned from TV, and couldn't go to bowl games for years. The punishment was so harsh it basically wrecked the program for decades. SMU went from a top team to barely winning games. For 20 years, they didn't even reach a bowl game, and the NCAA itself got scared. The punishment was so devastating that they've never used the death penalty in football again. Even in other huge scandals like Penn State's in 2012, the NCAA backed off from doing the same thing. So, in short, the SMU death penalty was the NCAA's nuclear option, handed down because SMU kept paying players under the table even while on probation. It remains the harshest punishment in college football history, and it's why the phrase "getting SMU'd" is now shorthand for the worst thing that can happen to a team. How do you win a Heisman, become a legend, and still lose it all? Let me tell you how. In the mid-2000s, USC football was on top of the college world. They had Hollywood glitz, packed stadiums, and a superstar running back named Reggie Bush. Bush was electric on the field, breaking tackles, scoring touchdowns, and winning the 2005 Heisman Trophy, college football's biggest individual award. To fans, he was untouchable. But off the field, things weren't so squeaky clean. Now you see, in college sports back then, athletes were not allowed to accept gifts or money beyond their scholarship. No free cars, no free apartments, no secret paychecks. The NCAA called this amateurism. Well, Bush and his family ended up receiving all of those things. Two sports agents, hoping to sign Bush when he turned pro, showered him and his family with benefits. His parents lived rent-free in a San Diego house. They got $10,000 worth of furniture, and Bush himself enjoyed travel perks and even a limo ride to the Heisman ceremony. In everyday terms, it was like playing college ball but also living like a mini celebrity, thanks to people who weren't supposed to be paying for anything. The NCAA eventually caught wind of this and launched a long investigation. When the verdict came down in 2010, it was brutal. USC had to erase 14 wins, including the 2005 season and its championship game appearances. They lost 30 scholarships over 3 years, faced a 2-year bowl ban, and were forced to cut ties with Reggie Bush for a full decade. To top it all off, Bush gave back his Heisman Trophy, the first player ever to do so. For USC, the fallout was huge. Their dynasty era under coach Pete Carroll collapsed, and the program spent years rebuilding its reputation. For Bush, his legendary college career came with a giant asterisk. But here's the twist. Times changed. Today, college athletes can legally profit from their name, image, and likeness, NIL. Deals that once wrecked Bush's career would now be completely legal. In fact, in 2024, the Heisman Trust reinstated him as the official 2005 Heisman winner. So, what's the lesson? Back then, Bush broke rules that seemed set in stone. Today, those same rules don't even exist. The USC scandal shows how fast the ground can shift in college sports, and why Reggie Bush's story is still one of the most talked about sagas in NC history. In the early 2000s, the University of Miami, home of the Hurricanes, was one of the flashiest names in college football. But in 2011, their reputation got rocked by a man named Nevin Shapiro, a booster who turned out to be at the center of one of the wildest scandals in NCAA history. A booster is someone who supports a college team with money or resources. Shapiro, though, wasn't just cutting checks to the school. He was secretly funding a lifestyle for Miami's athletes. Between 2002 and 2010, while also running a $930 million Ponzi scheme on the side, Shapiro claimed he spent millions giving improper benefits to dozens of football and basketball players. What kind of benefits? Just about everything you could imagine. Cash, jewelry, free meals, nightclub access, travel, even prostitutes. Some players got housing and bonuses for on-field performance, and Shapiro bragged about being part of their recruiting process too. Basically, if it broke NCAA rules on amateurism, Shapiro was probably doing it. The scandal exploded in 2011 when Yahoo Sports published his detailed accounts. Suddenly, Miami had to scramble. About 15 players were investigated, several were suspended for a handful of games, and the school even pulled itself out of bowl contention that year. After 2 years of digging, the NCAA came down with penalties in 2013. The verdict: Miami had lacked institutional control. The Hurricanes lost football and basketball scholarships, were put on 3 years probation, and some coaches received career-damaging show-cause penalties. The program avoided the dreaded death penalty thanks to their cooperation and self-punishments, but the scandal left a scar. For fans, it was a reminder that when a booster gets too close to the locker room, things can spiral way beyond control. Could a simple tattoo be the most expensive in Ohio State history? Turns out, in 2010, the Ohio State Buckeyes were one of the biggest football programs in the country and got caught in a scandal that would later be known as Tattoo-Gate. Here's what happened. Several star players were trading or selling school-issued memorabilia, stuff like championship rings, jerseys, and awards, in exchange for free or discounted tattoos at a local parlor in Columbus called Fine Line Tattoos, owned by Edward Reif. They also signed autographs for perks. Under NCAA rules at the time, college athletes weren't allowed to accept any extra benefits that regular students couldn't get. That meant even trading a jersey for a tattoo was against the rules. It sounds small, but the NCAA didn't think so. The situation got worse when it turned out that Ohio State's head coach, Jim Tressel, had known about it months earlier. A lawyer had emailed him warning that players were getting improper benefits, but instead of telling school officials or the NCAA, Tressel kept it to himself and even signed a form saying he knew of no violations. When the news broke, 5 players, including quarterback Terrell Pryor, were suspended for 5 games in 2011. Another was suspended for 1 game. But strangely, they were still allowed to play in the 2011 Sugar Bowl before the punishment kicked in. By July 2011, the NCAA hit Ohio State with these harsh penalties. All 12 wins from 2010 were vacated, officially erased. The team got a 1-year bowl ban. 2012, lost 5 scholarships and went on 2 years probation. Coach Tressel resigned and received a 5-year show-cause penalty, making it difficult for him to coach again. Tattoo-Gate is now a classic example of how even small violations, if covered up, can lead to major consequences in college football. In 2011, a scandal broke at Penn State University that shocked not just college football, but the entire country. At the center of it was Jerry Sandusky, a former assistant football coach and founder of a children's charity called The Second Mile. While he was known publicly as a mentor to kids, Sandusky was privately abusing his position for years. Between the 1990s and late 2000s, Sandusky used the charity and his football ties to gain access to young. Many of the alleged assaults happened in university facilities, like showers and locker rooms. One of the most critical moments came in 2001, when a graduate assistant named Mike McQuarrie walked into a Penn State locker room and saw Sandusky in the shower with. While the exact details were debated, McQuarrie reported it to head coach Joe Paterno, who passed the report to university officials, but nobody called the police. Sandusky wasn't arrested or removed. When all of this finally came to light in 2011, Sandusky was arrested and later convicted on 45 counts of abuse. He was sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison, effectively life. But the scandal didn't stop with him. Legendary coach Joe Paterno was fired. The university president and other top officials either resigned or were charged for their role in covering things up. The fallout was massive. Penn State was fined, placed on probation, stripped of wins, and ordered to pay over $100 million in settlements to victims. In one of the wildest twists in recent college football, the Michigan Wolverines, one of the sport's biggest names, found themselves at the center of a major sign-stealing scandal in 2023. At the heart of it all, a staffer named Connor Stalions. Starting around 2021, he allegedly ran a sneaky operation where he, and others working with him, tried to decode opponents' play-calling signals by secretly recording them. The idea? If you know what play the other team is about to run, you can shut it down before it even starts. Advantage: massive. To pull it off, Stalions bought tickets to over 30 games, sometimes even sending others to sit near the opposing sideline and film coaches signaling. He reportedly used friends, interns, and even disguises. Some claim he tried to sneak onto sidelines using fake credentials. That alone would raise eyebrows, but it gets worse. He allegedly deleted messages, destroyed phones, and tried to cover his tracks when investigators got involved. The head coach, Jim Harbaugh, denied knowing anything about it. Still, the NCAA hit him with a 10-year show-cause penalty, saying he failed to properly monitor his staff. Another coach, Sharon Moore, got suspended for 3 games for deleting messages related to the scheme. In August 2025, the NCAA dropped the hammer. Michigan got 4 years of probation, fined millions, including $20 million in lost revenue. Harbaugh and Stalions got multi-year penalties, but Michigan didn't lose their wins or get banned from postseason play because the NCAA didn't want to punish players who weren't involved. Imagine reporting a violent crime, only to be told to stay quiet, all because the person who hurt you played football for the university. Between 2012 and 2016, Baylor University, a major Texas school with a rising football program, got caught in one of the darkest scandals in college sports history. This wasn't about cheating or recruiting violations. This was about sexual assault, silence, and serious failure at the highest levels. At the center of it was Baylor's football team. Multiple players were accused of sexual assault. Some cases even involved alleged. But the bigger problem? Reports say the school did almost nothing. Survivors said they were discouraged from speaking up, ignored, or even blamed. Some claimed that Baylor officials tried to protect the players and the school's reputation instead of investigating properly. One victim described it as reporting an assault and being treated like she was the problem. A law firm, Pepper Hamilton, investigated and found that Baylor had failed across the board. Coaches, athletics, campus police, and the administration either looked the other way or didn't follow Title IX rules, federal rules about how schools must handle sexual assault complaints. As fallout, head football coach Art Briles was fired. University president Ken Starr, yes, the same Ken Starr from the Clinton investigation, was removed. The athletic director and other officials also resigned. The school eventually settled lawsuits with survivors and overhauled its reporting policies, but the damage was done. In the early 2000s, Baylor University, a Christian college in Texas with a powerhouse football team, found itself at the center of a scandal that shocked the sports world, and it had nothing to do with winning or cheating on the field. Between 2011 and 2016, multiple Baylor football players were accused of sexual assault, including extremely serious cases involving multiple victims. But here's the scandal. Instead of investigating those reports properly, school officials, football coaches, and administrators often ignored them, downplayed them, or pressured victims to stay silent. Victims said Baylor used its own campus policies, like strict rules on alcohol, parties, and dating, to shift blame away from players and onto the survivors. A few players were even allowed to keep playing, despite serious accusations. An outside law firm, Pepper Hamilton, was hired to investigate. Their report found a fundamental failure by the university to respond to sexual assault complaints, especially when football players were involved. As a result, head coach Art Briles was fired, university president Ken Starr resigned, and the athletic director also stepped down. Dozens of lawsuits followed, and Baylor eventually paid millions to settle with the survivors. But this wasn't just a Baylor issue. It became a national wake-up call, showing how football culture, institutional power, and silence can protect the wrong people. The school has since overhauled its Title IX policies, that's the federal law on handling sexual misconduct in schools, but the damage to Baylor's image and to the lives of those affected can't be undone. This scandal is remembered not just for what happened, but for what didn't, accountability when it was most needed. Between roughly 1993 and 2011, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, UNC, had a department called African and Afro-American Studies, AFAM, that offered a large number of what are sometimes called paper classes, or sham classes. These were courses that required very little real teaching or oversight. Some didn't meet regularly. Some assignments involved just writing one paper and turning it in. Students, many of them athletes, could get high grades without meaningful interaction with professors. By 2014, investigators estimate that over 3,100 students took these questionable classes. Nearly half were student athletes. UNC academic support counselors are said to have steered some athletes into those easy courses so they'd stay eligible for sports. Two people played big roles in running the system. Julius Nyangoro, AFAM department chair, who formally oversaw the department. Deborah Crowder, departmental secretary, who managed many of the paper classes. She often handled enrollment, grade rosters, and assignments. Some classes had no real faculty member teaching them. An important whistleblower was Mary Willingham, who claimed many athletes reading below college levels were kept eligible via these easy classes. She said that some students were essentially not being taught, but still getting A's. Investigations ensued. UNC conducted internal reviews, then an independent report in 2014 by Kenneth Weinstein confirmed most of the allegations. Findings included unauthorized grade changes, faculty signatures forged or misused, and classes that existed more on paper than in practice. Consequences: UNC was put on probation by its academic accrediting agency, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. The university made sweeping reforms: stricter oversight, auditing of classes, new rules on how courses are approved and taught. They restored their full accreditation by 2016. If you enjoyed watching this video, click to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.